On Wednesday, participants convened for the second day of the Work Program on Long-Term Finance wrap-up event, with 2 plenary sessions and 2 breakout groups on enabling environments and policy frameworks for effective deployment of climate finance and enabling environments and policy frameworks for mobilizing climate finance. Co-chair Mark Story introduced the morning plenary.
The first session was looking at enabling environments for effective deployment of climate finance, and this is looking very much at what developing countries can be doing to ensure that the finance they receive is deployed effectively.
One of the morning presenters, Rachel Fry, specified that some lessons have already emerged.
And we think there are some important learnings that can be drawn across from the development effectiveness world to effective climate finance. Country ownership, using country climate strategies as the basis for climate finance funding, aligning that funding behind country priorities, using, where appropriate, country systems to deliver it, having developing countries coordinate the different climate finance inputs.
Developing countries are engaging. They're engaging in terms of their planning processes, their low emission and climate resilience plans, their adaptation programs and plans, their national appropriate mitigation actions. So the diversity of action and the richness of action from developing countries is a fact and is a reality.
Sandy Nafo elaborated on country ownership from a developing country perspective.
Not only are countries involved at the inception, but at the implementation phase as well, in terms of mobilizing domestic resources, and that is new, and that has a number of challenges in terms of how do we coordinate at country and with partners.
Some delegates emphasized that it is important for countries that are still building capacity to access climate funds. Ole Uladong spoke to this in relation to the emerging Green Climate Fund.
I mean, if we're trying to create this Green Climate Fund, is the fund going to address for countries that have limited capacities but do have the right frameworks and policies on the ground? Are they going to be able to access the funding to implement the plans and policies?
On the topic of enabling environments in developed countries, speedy deployment of finance for both mitigation and adaptation, and involvement of the private sector was highlighted in the afternoon session.
This is much more a combination of the push and pull factors, but in particular what developed countries need to be doing to mobilize finance. And here there's been a range of issues, but quite a lot of discussion on the role of public policies and programs to leverage and mobilize finance from the private sector.
For us, it's also a great opportunity, hopefully, to convey the experience that we have through 650 projects, $50 billion of investment in this area, and therefore hopefully we can bring that knowledge to the resolution of some of the issues that are being discussed here.
Another panelist pointed to the wider context of the need for climate finance.
So we're talking about finance, we're here talking about the private sector, we're here talking about the government. We have a developmental strategy that doesn't take into consideration pollution. And when that happens, we have a market failure. And what is unique in a way about the market failure for climate change is that everybody is the culprit. Governments, development banks, private banks. And we're so entrenched in this mode that it's very difficult for us to leave this mode. So we are using small amounts of money to appease a huge gaping market failure. The day that it's much more profitable to shift into something else, we will shift, and you will see prices go down, we will see the climate regularize. So I am optimistic. We just have to move away a few little barriers, and then the market will take over.
Tomorrow is the third and last day of the wrap-up event on long-term finance, and IISD Reporting Services will be bringing you final reflections.